Hey guys, welcome back for another video. What we're going to be doing today is we'll be breaking down and predicting all of our NFL playoff games we have coming up for the divisional round of the playoffs. We had the wild card round, a lot of great games, a lot of great teams now competing to try to keep their path alive to make it to the Super Bowl. This is the second round of the playoffs. We're going to predict who's going to win, who's going to lose, and what the final score will be for each of these games. We will also mention the best bets, the money lines, the spreads, the over-unders. First things first, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments, please drop them below, and I will respond to every single one of them. Every week, we've been going over every single game all the way up through the Super Bowl, and we'll continue to do that in the offseason. We've also gone over every single college football game. We have the national championship coming up January 20th. This coming Monday, the college football season comes to an end. There's a lot going on in the world of football, a lot going on in the world of sports. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and I also have my Twitter handle down below. Make sure to follow us there, but let's go ahead and get started, guys. This is it. The playoffs are starting to get really good. We are down to our final 8 teams. We have 4 games in total, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. Let's kick things off with this Saturday game, which is going to be one of our AFC Divisional playoff games on ESPN. January 18th, 4:30 p.m., the 10-7 Houston Texans. What a first-round win they had over the Chargers. They dominated in that game. They were extremely banged up. They're down Dell, they're down Diggs, but the entire team showed up this past weekend. They showed what they're capable of doing. We have not actually seen the Texans play that way the entire season so far. They actually came in the playoffs limping into the playoffs, but they completely rebounded last week. They dominated on the defensive side. Anderson Jr., Hunter. Singletary Jr. had 2 interceptions of Herbert. The guy had 3 picks the entire season. He had 3 or 4 last week. They dominated there. They dominated on the offense. The main thing that stood out to me was Stroud running the ball. We haven't seen Stroud run like that since the bowl game versus the Georgia Bulldogs back in his college days. He was scrambling. He was mobile the entire day, kept the defense off track. Don't forget, the Chargers had the #1 defense in that game, and the Texans showed them up on both sides of the ball. But unfortunately for them, they now go up against the defending Super Bowl champs, the 15-2 Kansas City Chiefs, who has a 62.4% chance to win this game, 7.5-point favorites. The over here is 41.5. Kansas City was so solidified making the playoffs, they set their entire starting roster Week 18. Obviously, they got to skip the first round, so they haven't played in some time. That is one thing the Texans potentially have going for them, is Kansas City just might be a little rusty, but they are an experienced veteran team. They might be fully rested here, ready to rock and roll right out the gate. But if the Texans could potentially get the jump on them early because it's rusty, maybe it takes them 1 or 2 quarters to actually get going. Texans might be up, Kansas City might be playing catch up, but obviously that is easier said than done because KC has a pretty good defense. Defense will usually show up every single game, and you got to keep your eyes on Chris Jones. We know he's going to be getting after it. Texans do have a pretty questionable offensive line. Can Kansas City get a lot of pressure on them, control the pace of the game, get after Stroud, try to force some errant throws, try to force some interceptions, some turnovers? That's their goal here. They live off the turnovers. They live off of giving their offense the short field. Right now, Stroud, 3,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks as an offense, averaging 21.9. Throwing for 207.4, running for 112.3, giving up 21.9 points per game. And for KC, obviously they have Patrick Mahomes. This guy's been here before. This is a team that knows how to win in the playoffs. Andy Reid and company, they have this team rock and rolling. They're going to be ready to go, especially on that defensive side. They're averaging 22.6, throwing for 222.4. Mahomes has 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 picks. They're running for 105.3. They're only giving up 19.2 points a game. They still have a top 5 overall defense. The big thing that sticks out about their defense is they only give up 101.8 on the ground. That is technically a top 5 pass rush defense. Their goal, shut down the Texans' run game, force them into 3rd and long, try to force some turnovers, force some 3 and outs, give the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. And Kansas City, they're fully healthy right now. They did get Hollywood Brown back. They finally have that vertical weapon that can stretch the field. If you can push the ball down the field, that opens up the underneath game, and that's also going to assist with the running game. Looking at the playmakers here for Houston, Stroud, Mixon, Collins. Collins is a top 5, top 3 wide receiver when he's playing. And for the Chiefs, Mahomes, Hunt, Pacheco, Kelsey, Hollywood Brown back now. They have a lot of weapons. They have experience on their side. We have KC winning this one 27-20 and moving on to the next round. Our next game is our next Saturday game. This game is going to be 8 p.m. on Fox. We are going to have on January 18th the 12-5 Washington Commanders here versus the 15-2 Detroit Lions. This is an NFC Divisional game. Right now the Lions heavy favorites, 72.2% chance to win this game, 8.5-point favorites. The over here is 55.5. Washington also showed this past weekend when they beat the Bucs what they were capable of on offense. They have a top 7 overall offense. If they can score on anyone. They can throw it, they can run it. They have the potential offensive rookie of the year, Jaden Daniels. He's been lighting things up. He's been running the ball all over teams. The rushing game as a whole for the team needs to step up. But when you have Jaden Daniels slinging the ball, anything's possible. And you definitely need to be able to score when you're playing the number 1 offense in the NFL, the Detroit Lions. But Washington, what a turnaround they had since last season. Quinn, Daniels, Wagner, you guys deserve a lot of props. You showed what this team can do when you get a good quarterback on this team. This team was atrocious last season. Now they're in the second round of the playoffs, a shot to potentially make it to the conference round next week. This team can score. That is a massive upgrade here that gives your defense some breathers, being able to keep them off the field, keep them off the sidelines. And when your offense is scoring, you're able to also keep the ball out of Goff and the Detroit Lions' number 1 offense's hands. You don't want them to have the ball. You want to keep them on the sidelines as long as possible. They got their first playoff win since, I think, 2005. This is a massive step going forward. Yes, they might not make the Super Bowl this season, but it's a massive foundational piece here to have made it this far so far. Looking at the team, Jaden Daniels, 3,600 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 picks. He also added to that 6 rushing touchdowns. He's a multiple dual-threat quarterback. He will take off and run. He could potentially run for 100 yards this game. If he does that, they have a real shot to pull this one off. Right now, top 7 overall offense, averaging 28.5 points a game, throwing for 215.6, running for 154.1. Very balanced on the offensive side. They are giving up 23 points a game. They have a pretty solid secondary, only giving up 189.5 yards per game. They can shut down the pass. That is a top 5 overall secondary. Where they have their weaknesses is their defensive pass rush. They are only giving up 137.5 on the ground. You can move the ball on the ground versus Washington. You might have some difficulty through the air, but a great rushing game should open up the pass game, should open up the play action, and thankfully for the Lions, they have a pretty good rushing attack. They have 2 really good running backs, 2 1,000-yard caliber running backs. If Washington gets in the ground game, the Lions will gladly take it. Right now, like I mentioned, the number 1 offense in the NFL. Goff picked things up right where he left off last season. We know that the Lions have been on a mission this entire season. They had a shot to make the Super Bowl last year. They barely missed it. This is their chance now. This is a team built to make the Super Bowl. 4,700 passing yards for Goff, 37 touchdowns, 12 picks. The number 1 offense by a lot. Not even close. They're averaging 33.2 points a game, throwing for 263.2, running for 146.4, giving up 20.1 points a game. They're vice versa. They're the complete opposite of Washington. You can throw all over the Lions. They give up 244 passing yards per game. There's going to be a lot of opportunities there for Washington to push the ball down the field. The Lions will give that. Where they have their strength on defense is they're only giving up 98.4 rushing yards per game. A top 3 overall rush defense. Their front 7, even without Hutchinson, they get after, they get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Their goal, can you shut down Jaden Daniels in the rushing attack? It's easier said than done, but can they force them into some potential 3rd and long situations where they can pin their ears back and they can come after him, potentially pick up some sacks, or just get some quarterback pressure, just force some errant throws? But it's going to be easier said than done versus this offense. Looking at the playmakers for Washington, Jaden Daniels, 3,600 passing yards. He also has 891 yards on the ground. This guy's a multiple dual-threat quarterback. Robinson Jr., though, he needs to step up. He's going to need some assistance in the running area. He can't carry this entire team on his back. Someone has to step up to help that rushing game. You don't want Jaden Daniels running 20 times in this game. That might work for 1 or 2 games in the playoffs, but as you're playing these better offenses, these better defenses, you're going to need a complete team performance. And they also have Scary Terry there at the wide receiver position For the Lions, the big news is Montgomery's probably coming back this game. So your running back room is getting deeper. 2 1,000-yard caliber backs. They have Goff, Gibbs, Montgomery, St. Brown, just weapons up and down the field. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. They are loaded. I have this game being close first half, but the Lions pull it away second half. They are very physical. That starts to wear down the Commanders. I have the Lions winning this one 31-21. And we're now moving on to our Sunday games. The first one, our NFC matchup on NBC, January 19th at 3 p.m. The 10-7 LA Rams, do not judge them by their record. They had a very bad first half of the season. A lot of people calling for fire sale. But I said, once they get all their offensive playmakers back, because they've been pretty banged up throughout the season, this offense is going to roll. It is going to carry this team to the playoffs. That's exactly what happened. One of the best top-to-bottom offensive rosters in the NFL. And they're healthy right now. You got to keep your eye on someone when they can match you blow for blow, score for score. But right now they're going to be playing the 14-3 Philadelphia Eagles, one of the more well-rounded teams in the NFL, one of the best defenses, one of the best offenses, and they can run the ball as good as anyone. The number 2 rushing team in the NFL. When you can run the ball that well, you can play time of possession, control the clock, keep your offense on the field, keep the offense out of the LA Rams' hands, and just control and dominate that clock. You can't score if you don't have the ball. They can suck up clock. 8 to 9 minute possessions every single quarter. Right now, the Eagles, 6-point favorites. Over in here is 43.5. They have a 65.4% chance to win this game. But the Rams, when they have the ball, they have to make the most of those opportunities. They have to score. They have to play potentially blow for blow, punch for punch, counter-punching football here. They have Stafford. They have the veteran quarterback. Do not underestimate that. He's been there before. He knows how to win these games. 3,800 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 8 picks, averaging 21.6. Throwing for 227.5, running for 103.8, giving up 22.7 points a game. They have questions in their secondary. They have questions on their defensive front. Where they don't have questions is that offense. Looking at the other side, looking at the Eagles, they have Hurts. Hurts missed 3 to 4 games, still put up really good stats. Did not have his best game last weekend, but obviously he had played in 3 weeks so far, so he was pretty rusty. But what version of Hurts do we get? Do we get 80% Hurts, or do we get unlimited 100% Hurts? The reason that I say that is he's a very physical runner. He loves to scramble. He loves to give you the tush push on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1s. But if he's not 100%, that can greatly affect this offense. It could affect the way that they've been scheming things since he's come out of college. Physical, ground game, using the quarterback as well. If he's not there, how does that affect this offense, especially in a game where the Eagles, out of the gate, could potentially find themselves down 1 score? Right now, Hurts, 2,900 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 picks. He also has 14 rushing touchdowns out of that. They have a top 8 offense. They average 27.2 points a game. They throw for 187.9. They run for 179.3, the number 2 rushing offense in the NFL, and they're only giving up 17.8 points a game. That is actually overall the number 2 defense in the NFL. So even if the offense is not 100%, even if they have a little bit of a slow run out of the gate, they can rely on that defense. They know their defense will be able to keep this game close, keep it as a 1-score game, always give their offense a chance to potentially come back and win this game. That's something the Rams don't have. The Rams, they are an offensively focused team. They don't have the defense. The Eagles have the offense. They have the defense. If one of those things isn't working that day, they know that the other can still make up that ground and can still dominate the pace of this game. Look at the amount of yards they give up. Only 174.2 passing yards. That is the number 1 passing defense in the NFL. 104.2 on the ground. That's a top 10 rush defense. Very balanced team. The playmakers for the Rams, they're loaded. Stafford, Williams missed some time this season, still finished with 1,300 rushing yards. They have Nakua, Cooper Kupp, Atwell, lots of weapons, lots of options to Stafford to drop the ball off to. And for the other side, the Eagles, Hurts, Saquon Barkley, how can you not mention him? The number 1 running back in the NFL. Skip the opportunity to set the rushing record in one season, set week 18 to keep his legs fresh. That's not a bad decision. If you can make the Super Bowl, if you can win the Super Bowl, who cares about the rushing record? And they have A.J. Brown, they have Smith, lots of weapons as well. These teams are evenly matched on the offensive side, but the Eagles have that defense. I have the Eagles winning this one, their defense making the difference second half. They win 27-21. And this is it. This is our last game of the weekend, our AFC round, wrapping things up Sunday night, 6:30 p.m., January 19th on CBS. This is the last game. And it's fitting because it might be the best game of the entire season so far. The 12-5 Baltimore Ravens versus the 13-4 Buffalo Bills. Look, this game is as much a 50-50 quarter flip pick'em game as there's been the entire season. I would not be surprised who in any way won this game. Either team can win this game. These teams are so evenly matched. This is two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, the two MVP frontrunners for the season, matching off. It stinks it's so early in the playoffs. This is the type of game should have been a conference round game deciding who goes to the Super Bowl. Right now, look at this. Baltimore, 50.0% chance to win this game. Buffalo, 50.0% chance to win this game. This game is a 50-50 pick'em. Right now, Baltimore, 1-point favorite. The over-under is 51.5. Baltimore is the ever so slight favorite, but this is a pick'em game, guys. This game could go either way. If Baltimore wins it, would not be surprised. They might win the Super Bowl. If Buffalo wins it, would not be surprised. They might win the Super Bowl. I don't have a horse in this race. I'm just a football fan, and I'm just going to enjoy watching elite offenses play. Who wants it most? Who can dominate this game second half? That's what's going to make the difference. This game could go down to the fourth quarter, could go down to the very last possession of the game. It is hard to predict right now who's going to have the ball last Sunday night, but that's probably who's going to win this game. So let's take a look at the stats here. For Lamar Jackson, obviously, he's probably going to win the MVP. Definitely, he's put up the numbers. He's put up video game numbers. One of the best all-around quarterback seasons I've ever seen in my life. 4,200 passing yards, 41 passing touchdowns, 4 picks, and you could also add 1,000 rushing yards to that number. This guy's been elite, 45 overall touchdowns. Right now, Baltimore, the number 3 offense in the NFL, just slightly behind Buffalo at number 2. They're averaging 30.5 points per game, throwing for 237.4, running for 187.6. This team averages about 450 offensive yards per game, and on defense, they're giving up 21.2. That's about a top 15 defense, but you have to look at where they were before. First half of the season, they were giving up about 26 points a game. It shows how much this team has dominated second half. The offense kept getting better, and that then helped the defense get some breathers in this game, and they've really stepped up with their front seven, their pass rush they've been getting after. They actually had the number 2 defense in the NFL second half, so that stat doesn't give you the full story. This defense is hot right now. They've been dominating. They get a lot of quarterback pressure. They shut down the run. Looking at the stats, this whole season, their weakness on defense has been their secondary. They give up 244.1 passing yards per game. There were opportunities to throw on them. Buffalo will be able to push the ball down the field. But one thing they do, the number 1 rush defense in the NFL, only giving up 80.1 yards per game. You can throw on them. You definitely cannot run on them. They are physical at the line of scrimmage in the trenches. They dominate there. We know Buffalo wants to run the ball, not just with Cook. Josh Allen can run. He can scramble. This is going to be strength on strength. Who's going to be able to control the rush game the most? And looking at Buffalo, Josh Allen, he was right there stat-wise with Lamar the whole season. I had Josh Allen winning the MVP up to Week 18 because he doesn't have the as talented team, so I was giving him the ever so slight edge, but he only took 1 snap that week. Lamar Jackson played the entire game. When he played one more game than the other guy, I got to give you the nod because they were basically tied. Josh Allen, though, still a great season. 41 overall touchdowns. Didn't even play that last week. Only took 1 snap. He finished 3,700 passing yards, 28 passing touchdowns, 6 picks, 13 rushing touchdowns. Both of these quarterbacks are mobile threats on the ground. They had the number 2 offense in the NFL, just above the Ravens. They average 30.9. They throw for 227.9. They run for 131.2. They're giving up 21.6 points a game. Both teams are pretty evenly matched on offense, pretty evenly matched on defense. They give up 226.1 passing yards, 115.5. But we know this game is going to come down to that line of scrimmage. It's going to test depth, and it's going to test who wants it most in the fourth quarter. Looking at the playmakers for the Ravens, obviously, Lamar Jackson, 4,200 passing yards, 1,000 rushing yards. Derrick Henry, the running back, 1,921 rushing yards, almost 2,000 rushing yards. This is the best 1-2 rushing combo in the nation. And one of those guys is the quarterback. That just shows how great he is as a player. And on offense, they are loaded. Zay Flowers is still banged up. but they have Bateman, Andrews, likely. I hope Flowers plays because I want to see these teams at their best. I want to see the best teams competing to make it to the Super Bowl. And for Buffalo, Josh Allen, Cook, 16 rushing touchdowns, the most in the NFL. Shakir, Coleman, Cooper. The Ravens have the better receivers, but Buffalo has a really good receiving core as a whole, a rounded group that whenever they need big catches, there's a guy that's going to step up. But this game's going to be close, guys. This game could go either way. Like I said, it's hard to predict who's going to have the ball last Sunday night. But I'm going to go with Buffalo pulling off a close win here, winning this one at the end, 33-27, and I have them moving on to the next round. I'm in no way saying Baltimore will not win this game. If they do, I would not be surprised at all. If they have the ball last, they will win it. If Buffalo has the ball last, they will win it. Let's just hope for a fun game. Guys, that's our picks and predictions for our divisional round of the playoffs. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. Please drop some comments below, and I will respond. Thank you.